You ever have one of those moments where you're standing in the back of the room, watching someone take credit for work you literally built with your bare hands, and they don't even glance in your direction? Like you were a ghost the whole time. Yeah, that was me, right before I decided to burn it all down. My name's Frances. I'm 28, and for almost 2 years I was the store manager at a little pet supply boutique called Bark and Whiskers. It was one of those independent, locally loved shops that tried to brand itself as hip, earthy, and community-focused. When I started there, it was hanging by a thread, no foot traffic, dusty shelves, and a register that rang maybe once an hour. I didn't know it at the time, but that place was going to be both the best and worst decision of my professional life. I wasn't desperate for a job when I took the offer, but I was definitely craving a fresh start. My last job was at a big box chain, great paycheck, zero soul. The owner of Bark and Whiskers painted this picture of opportunity. You'll have creative freedom, he told me during the interview. Think of this as your store. He leaned in like we were co-conspirators and said, I believe in people who hustle. I should known better. Anyone who uses the word hustle like a compliment is probably planning to exploit yours. Still, I liked the idea of running something small and personal. I'd worked in retail since I was 18, and this was the first time someone actually gave me keys to the place and said, make it work. And I did. God, did I ever. The first thing I did was revamp our product layout. We had premium dog food shoved on the bottom shelf and expired cat treats still collecting dust near the register. I ran inventory manually, then spent a weekend redoing all the shelving. I even bought chalkboard signs out of my own pocket because I knew they'd appeal to the earthy, organic pet parent crowd. Next, I launched our Instagram. Had created an account, but his last post was a blurry picture of a fish tank with the caption, Monday Vibes. I scheduled daily content, featured customers and their pets, reposted adoption events, and even made weekly product tips. Our follower count jumped from 212 to over 3,500 in 6 months. I also introduced a rewards program and partnered with a local dog groomer to offer combo deals. The events I organized, like Pup Night, where people could paint with their dogs' paws, and Saturday morning Bark Yoga, started drawing in people who hadn't even known we existed. By the end of year 1, we weren't just surviving, we were making real money. And he took all the credit. At first, it was subtle. A vendor would compliment our improved stock rotation and would nod sagely and say, yeah, I've been putting a lot of thought into our merchandising. I'd laugh it off because I didn't want to be that person. I mean, maybe he didn't realize how it sounded. Maybe he was just awkward with praise. But then came the interviews. Our local paper did a piece on downtown small business successes and was front and center. The headline read, Visionary Pet Store Owner Brings Bark and Whiskers Back from the Brink. Visionary, that word made my stomach twist. I remember sitting in the break room, the newspaper spread out on the table, reading quote after quote where talked about his commitment to community and understanding the pet economy. He never once mentioned me or the team. And sure, it's his store on paper, but I'm the one who breathed life into that place. I'm the one who skipped lunch to set up an impromptu hamster habitat demo when a group of middle schoolers came in unexpectedly. I'm the one who stayed late cleaning out the fish tanks when our part-timer forgot. Still, I didn't say anything. I figured fine, let him have his 15 minutes, as long as I got my bonus. See, that was the deal. When he first hired me, he promised I'd get a percentage of profits if we reached certain quarterly targets. Not in writing, of course, just one of those wink-wink handshake agreements. He even joked about it a few times in front of other employees, saying things like, if we hit this number, Francis is gonna be rolling in it. Guess what happened when we hit that number? Yup, nothing. So I knocked on his office door one Monday after closing and sat across from him, file in hand, showing the numbers. We exceeded projections by almost 30% last quarter, I said, trying to keep it light. I figured it'd be a good time to talk about the performance bonus. Leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers like he was a CEO in some HBO drama. Francis, he said with this patronizing smile, you're already getting a generous salary. Let's not make things awkward by bringing money into it. I swear to God, my brain glitched for a second. I said slowly, you promised. I said I hoped we'd be in a place where bonuses were possible, he interrupted. You must misunderstood. No, I didn't, but okay. I stared at him for a few seconds, and in that silence, something inside me shifted. Not anger yet, but this eerie calm, like the moment you realize the fire alarm isn't malfunctioning, your kitchen really is full of smoke. Wasn't going to reward me, ever. He was going to keep taking everything I gave and spin it into a story where he was the genius and I was just the help, disposable, replaceable. So that night I went home, sat down with a glass of boxed wine and opened a blank spreadsheet. If I could turn his failing store into a community hotspot, I could do it for myself. And just like that, the seed was planted. But I didn't just want to quit, I wanted justice. Real, slow burn, rip the roots out revenge. I started by researching vacant commercial spaces. Then I pulled data on local customer behavior, what products sold best, what events brought people in, what kind of layout worked. I wasn't going to start over from scratch. I was going to start over smarter. Right next door. I didn't sleep that night, not from stress, but from clarity. You ever have a moment where everything just clicks into place? Like your brain, been doing mental behind the scenes for months, and suddenly the whole board lights up? That was me lying in bed at 3:47 a.m., staring at the ceiling with a wild grin on my face. Thought he owned the game. He had no idea I was building a new board. The next morning, I showed up to work with coffee in hand and a poker face like nothing had happened. Greeted me with his usual smug, "Hey, superstar," like he hadn't just gaslit me about the bonus the night before. I smiled right back. He didn't need to know I'd spent the last 6 hours researching commercial lease prices and plotting his demise. I started small. First, I dug through all our sales data. Thankfully, I still had access to the Square dashboard, never bothered to learn. I made copies of every quarterly report, every high-performing SKU, every vendor relationship I'd built. These weren't just numbers, they were proof that the business thrived because of me, not him, not his vision. Me. Then I started talking, casually, strategically. "Hey Maria," I'd say to our Tuesday morning regular who bought rawhide in bulk, "I'm thinking about doing something new. If there was one thing you wish this store did better, what would it be? Or, you've got those 2 labs, right? What brands do you wish we carried?" I wasn't pitching anything, not yet, just listening. And people talked. Turns out a lot of customers loved the vibe we'd built, but hated the inconsistency. Products went out of stock all the time, refused to invest in new shelving. He'd cut staff hours to save money, even though foot traffic was growing. One woman literally said, "I only shop here because you're here, Francis. If you left, I probably wouldn't bother." Oh, honey, just wait. Around that time, I started taking long lunch breaks. Sometimes I'd tell I was running a marketing errand or checking out a competitor's promo. He ate it up. Thought I was scouting ideas for his store. In reality, I was meeting with landlords. There was a vacant space just 4 doors down from Bark and Whiskers, used to be a bakery, now collecting dust. It had big windows, corner visibility, and parking, a holy grail in our part of town. The rent was, well, ambitious, but I knew what we could make in that location. I'd seen the numbers, I'd made the numbers. I pitched my idea to a local credit union. Small business loan, minority women-led entrepreneurship angle, community building pitch. I even brought in testimonials from customers and printed photos from our most successful events. The loan officer looked at me like I was already holding the keys. "I'll be honest," he said, flipping through my folder, "you're more prepared than most people we talk to." "I've been doing this job for someone else," I said. "It's time I did it for me." He nodded. "Let's get you approved." Boom. Just like that, it was real. That night I sat in my apartment, laptop open, sketching logo ideas on a napkin. I settled on the name Fetch and Feather, clean, modern, with a bit of charm. I wanted something that felt like a sanctuary for pet lovers, not just shelves and food bags, but a space, a vibe, somewhere people actually wanted to be. The next phase was trickier. I couldn't just up and leave. Not yet. Relied on me for literally everything: inventory, staff scheduling, event planning, even ordering toilet paper. If I vanished overnight, he'd know something was up. And I wasn't ready to make my move until the new place was stocked, branded, and ready to launch. So I played the long game. For the next 2 months, I lived a double life. By day, I was still Francis, the loyal manager, hosting Meow and Mingle events and boosting store reviews. By night, I was Francis, the business owner, negotiating vendor deals, choosing paint colors, and figuring out how many doggy treat bins could fit on a 4-foot display shelf. The best part? Didn't suspect a thing. In fact, the better things went, the more smug he got. One afternoon, he called me into his office to show me an email from a local chamber of commerce. "They want to feature us in their next newsletter," he said, kicking his feet up on the desk. "Told you this place was gold once I got involved." I nodded totally. Inside, I was screaming. Every time he took credit for my work, he just added fuel to the fire. By the time I hit week 10 of my secret launch plan, I didn't even need revenge to feel satisfied. I just wanted to beat him, to prove publicly and loudly that I didn't need him or anyone like him to succeed. And then it happened. I was restocking a display of grain-free kibble when walked in holding his phone like he'd just discovered fire. "Francis," he said, "did you know there's a new pet boutique opening on Main?" I froze. He found out. But he didn't, not really. "Fetch and Feather," he said, reading from the screen. "What kind of hipster name is that? They're even using the same colors as us. Ha, watch, they'll be closed in 6 months. He laughed and walked away. I stood there, heartbeat in my ears, one hand still gripping a bag of kibble. He didn't know. Not yet. But soon. You never forget the feeling of unlocking the door to your own business for the first time. It was early, like still dark outside early, when I stood in front of the glass storefront of Fetch and Feather with a giant coffee in one hand and the brand new keys in the other. My fingers were shaking, partly from the caffeine, but mostly from this cocktail of excitement and terror. I turned the key, and the bell over the door gave this little ding as I stepped inside. It was mine. All of it. The polished floors, the softly lit shelves, the eco-friendly cat towers I'd fought tooth and nail to get at wholesale price, even the custom wall mural hand-painted by a local artist I'd met at one of our dog events looked better than I imagined. It featured a golden retriever and a parrot sitting on a cloud surrounded by little hearts and paw prints. It was joyful, peaceful, welcoming. Wouldn't know welcoming if it bit him in the ass. Our soft opening wasn't big. I wanted to test the waters first. I put up flyers at the dog park, shared the announcement on my personal Instagram. I hadn't created a public page yet, didn't want catching on, and emailed some regulars who'd given me their contacts over the years. Just a simple, friendly invite. Hey there, I've launched something new for pet lovers. Swing by and see what Fetch and Feather is all about. And people came. Not just a few, dozens. By the end of day one, I'd sold out of organic rabbit treats, half my leash stock, and had to reorder the handmade ceramic food bowls from the artist in Asheville. People weren't just shopping, they were talking, hanging out, sharing stories, posting photos with the mural, tagging the shop. I went home that night exhausted, but happier than I'd been in years. And then the real fun started. See, the following Monday, I went back to Bark and Whiskers for one last shift. My real opening day for Fetch and Feather was that Friday, and I wanted a few more days to tie up loose ends, monitor reactions, and maybe enjoy the slow unraveling of his ego. I walked in to find him packing by the register, phone in hand, visibly annoyed. You see this, he said, waving his screen at me. That new store, Fetch and Feather, they're blowing up on Instagram. One of our regulars just posted about their opening. What's going on? Why didn't we know about this sooner? I blinked deadpan. I think I saw a flyer at the dog park. He grunted, muttering something about copycats and flash-in-the-pan trends. He still didn't get it. He thought it was just a random competitor, not realizing the person behind it had memorized every weakness in his operation. That afternoon, I handed in my resignation. Oh, seriously, said, reading my typed-up letter, you're leaving now. I've got other plans, I said simply. Thanks for the opportunity. He barely looked up from his screen. You know you're walking away from a steady gig, right? It's rough out there, places open every day and crash 6 months later. Be smart, Francis. I smiled. I am. On Friday morning, Fetch and Feather officially launched. I had a full event planned, free samples, adoptable kittens from the local shelter, a dog photo booth, and a raffle for a $100 gift basket. The sidewalk was packed before we even opened. People brought their kids, their dogs, their friends. A woman I hadn't seen in over a year drove from the next town over just to check it out. By noon, we were trending locally. By closing, I had to restock 3 entire product categories. And by the end of the week, the gossip had reached Bark and Whiskers. My former started texting me, fuming, one wrote. He finally figured it out, you're the owner, you should seen his face. I laughed so hard I snorted. I know, now, but it was too late. Because what he never understood is that customers don't just buy products, they buy people, trust, familiarity, experience. I'd built all of that for his store, and now I was offering it somewhere better. Week by week, I watched as familiar faces stopped showing up at Bark and Whiskers and started showing up at Fetch and Feather. It took less than a month for Empire to start crumbling, and honestly, I was surprised it even lasted that long. The first sign came from a Yelp review. I wasn't looking for it, I swear. Someone tagged Fetch and Feather in a glowing 5-star review, and I clicked over to their profile out of curiosity. They reviewed Bark and Whiskers 2 just days before, only this one was brutal. I used to shop at Bark and Whiskers for years, mostly out of habit, but lately it's been a mess, empty shelves, the good staff gone, and the owner seems like he's never even had a pet. I checked out Fetch and Feather last weekend and wow. Same friendly faces, better selection, cleaner, friendlier vibe, not going back. That last line, not going back, it hit different. And it was just the beginning. By week 2, I'd hired 2 of my former. One of them had been the best cashier I'd ever worked with, quick, friendly, and adored by customers. The other, Jordan, was the one who used to help me with inventory at Bark and Whiskers and had a mind like a machine. He could look at a shelf and instantly know what was missing. Both of them had quit place within a week of my soft launch. When I asked what made them finally walk, said, "You leaving made it clear nothing was going to change. He treated us like warm bodies. That place died the moment you left." Meanwhile was scrambling. He dropped prices, plastered clearance signs on windows, and started doing giveaways on Facebook that felt like they'd been and pasted from mine. Literally, I ran a puppy day where customers got free digital portraits of their dogs. A week later, posted about Fur Friday. Same idea, same exact font. At first, it made me laugh, then it just got sad. The problem wasn't that he was trying to copy me, it's that he didn't understand why anything worked. He didn't get that it wasn't about the events or the prices, it was about the experience, the community, the relationships I'd spent years building. You can't fake that overnight. Customers noticed too. One morning, an older couple, Marla and Joe, came in to fetch and feather with their beagle Duke. They used to shop every Tuesday morning at Bark and Whiskers. I knew because I used to special order Duke's favorite jerky sticks just for them. "Francis," Marla said, setting her purse down on the counter like she was home, "I've been meaning to tell you. We stopped by last week just out of curiosity." He was working the register. I raised an eyebrow, working the floor. "Oh yeah," Joe chimed in. He looked miserable, kept muttering under his breath, forgot to ring up our coupon and had to redo the whole sale. Marla leaned closer. "The place felt off, empty, no music, no smiles. It's like the soul's gone missing. Anyway, we won't be going back, just thought you'd want to know." I really did. But here's the thing about revenge, it's not always explosive. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, 1,000 tiny cuts until the other person's too far gone to save themselves. I didn't gloat, not out loud. But I made sure the next time Duke came in, his jerky sticks were already on the shelf, with a hand-drawn sign that said Duke's favorites. Because that's how you win. A few days later, the real bomb dropped. I got a call from the rep from a major natural pet food brand. She sounded hesitant. "Hey Francis, not sure if you've heard, but tried to undercut our wholesale pricing agreement." I blinked. "What do you mean?" He emailed corporate asking to renegotiate his rates, said we were giving you preferential treatment because you're new competition, basically accused you of poaching him out of business. I laughed out loud, seriously. She sighed, "Yeah. He claimed we were favoring you unfairly and demanded lower pricing or exclusive rights to certain products in the area." And what did corporate say? "We told him to pound sand, basically. You've been a model account, on-time payments, strong sales, great customer engagement. He's been ordering less, paying late, and his staff turnover's a nightmare." I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there at my desk for a minute, letting it sink in. Had gone from smug boss to bitter accuser in under 30 days. He wasn't just panicking, he was desperate. A week later, it got worse for him. I got a message from the Downtown Business Council inviting me to speak at a small business panel topic, turning struggle into success. They'd heard about Fetch and Feather's growth, seen the foot traffic, and wanted me to talk about entrepreneurship. Guess who else was on the original guest list? 2 days before the event, he pulled out. I wasn't surprised. But what did surprise me was the email he sent me directly that same night. No subject line, just, "You really think this is going to last? People are fickle, they'll move on, you got lucky. Don't forget who gave you your shot." I stared at the message for a while, I didn't respond. Because he was wrong. This wasn't luck. It was earned. There's something eerie about watching a person unravel in real time. Had always been cocky, loud, the kind of guy who filled every room like he was auditioning for a documentary about himself, but when I saw him 3 weeks after that petty email, he looked smaller. It was during a morning walk to grab coffee before opening the store. I was halfway down the block when I spotted him standing outside Bark and Whiskers, shoulders hunched, staring at a city inspector's clipboard. From across the street, I could hear the edge in his voice. "Come on, man, a few boxes in the alley and suddenly it's a violation." The inspector, a tall guy with a receding hairline and an expression like he'd rather be anywhere else, responded, "The alley's blocked. That's a fire code issue. You've been warned before. This is your final notice." Turned, caught me looking, and froze. I gave him the faintest nod, not a smirk, not even a smile, just enough to let him know I saw everything. And I kept walking. Later that day, pulled me aside after her shift. She bumped into one of the Bark and Whiskers part-timers at the grocery store. "He told me he's been working full days at the store himself," she said, leaning against the back counter. "They're down to 2 employees and he's too cheap to hire more. He's even started unloading inventory himself." "Inventory he can barely afford," Jordan added, poking his head in from the stockroom. "Our supplier told me his last check bounced twice." Things were breaking down fast. Meanwhile, Fetch and Feather was thriving. Our weekend workshop on raw feeding had sold out, and I'd booked a new dog trainer to teach puppy social classes. Our adoption board was full of success stories, and our Instagram DMs were flooded with people asking about events, products, custom orders. I'd even started thinking about opening a second location by the end of the year. But I wasn't done with not yet. See, he wasn't just a bad boss, he was manipulative. The kind of person who weaponized charm to mask incompetence, who made you feel lucky to be underpaid, overworked, and underappreciated, and even now he still didn't understand what he'd done wrong. I didn't want revenge in the abstract anymore. I wanted a lesson he couldn't ignore. So I made a call. There was a local journalist, Sarah, who'd interviewed a year ago for that business spotlight where he took credit for all my work. I reached out and asked if she was interested in a follow-up. "I remember you," she said when we met for coffee. "You were the manager, right? I always thought it was odd how your name never came up." I smiled, funny how that works. I told her everything. Not a sob story, not a rant, just facts. How I'd built his store from the ground up, how he broke every promise, how I left, launched Fetch and Feather, and was now outperforming him with the same customer base. She asked if I was willing to go on record. I was. The article dropped 2 weeks later. From manager to mogul, how one woman turned betrayal into a business empire. It spread faster than I expected, not just in local circles, but in retail forums, small business Facebook groups, even LinkedIn. His name wasn't in the headline, but he was all over the comments. Wait, wasn't this the guy who took credit for his manager's work last year? My wife stopped shopping there when Francis left, now we know why. This is what happens when you underestimate your best asset. By the end of the day, Bark and Whiskers' Yelp page was flooded with new reviews, people either praising Fetch and Feather or dragging's behavior into the light. I didn't post a word, I didn't share the article, I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. He was unraveling publicly now. The final blow came the following Monday. I was restocking our bulk treat bins when a tall woman with a clipboard and a very official vibe stepped into the store. "Hi," she said, "I'm from the leasing office next door. Is Francis available?" "That's me," I said, wiping peanut butter dust off my hands. She smiled and handed me a folder. "Just a heads up, Bark and Whiskers is in arrears on their lease. Management's planning to reclaim the space next month unless it's paid in full." My brows lifted, really. She nodded. "If they default and you're ever interested in expanding, we'd be happy to work something out." She left me with the paperwork. I stood there for a moment, the quiet of the shop surrounding me, the soft shuffle of a dog's paws on the linoleum floor echoing in the background. Wasn't just losing customers. He was losing everything. And I hadn't lifted a finger, just built something better. The day the for lease sign went up in Bark and Whiskers' window, it felt like the whole block paused to take a breath. I didn't celebrate, not out loud. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't linger just a little longer by the front window of Fetch and Feather that morning, watching tape a notice to the inside of the glass with his head down, shoulders slumped like he was trying to disappear. Word spread fast. Customers asked, neighbors gossiped. One of our delivery guys poked his head in with a grin and said, "So I guess you really were the backbone of that place." I smiled, "Guess so." Didn't try to reach out, not then. Not after the article, not after the reviews tanked, not after his last part-time cashier quit and joined my team 2 days later. But I knew it wasn't over yet. People like him don't just disappear. They wait, scheme, lick their wounds in private, waiting for a moment to spin the story in their favor. So when I finally did hear from him, it wasn't an apology. It was a pitch. An email full of the most painfully transparent nonsense I've ever read. "Hey Francis, I've been thinking a lot about things and wanted to reach out. I've got a few new business ideas in the works and could really use someone like you on the ground floor. We had a good thing once. No hard feelings, right? Let's talk." No hard feelings. I sat there for a solid minute just staring at my screen. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. He actually thought I'd come back after all of it. "No, not this time." I wrote one sentence. "The only thing I'll be doing is watching your new ideas go up in smoke from across the street." I hit send and blocked his address. That was the last time I ever heard from Maze. In the months that followed, Fetch and Feather became more than a store, it became a pillar. We hosted adoption fairs, charity events, even partnered with a local high school to help kids with disabilities learn basic job skills in a friendly, patient environment. We weren't just selling pet food, we were building community. Customers brought us photos of their pets, holiday cards, handmade treats to share with the staff. One little girl, Emma, came in every Friday with her dog Max just to draw pictures of animals on our chalkboard wall. Her mom told me Fetch and Feather was the only place Emma felt comfortable talking to adults. That hit me. Because I'd spent years giving everything I had to a business that never gave back. And now, every day I stepped into my store, I felt it return to me tenfold. People ask me sometimes if I'd do it again, if I'd still work for knowing how it would all end. And the truth is, yeah. Because every lesson, every late night, every insult I swallowed built the version of me that could do this, that could look betrayal in the face and still move forward. I didn't get lucky. I got clear. I stopped waiting to be noticed, stopped hoping someone would give me what I'd already earned, and I took it for myself. That's the real win. It's not just that lost. It's that I stopped needing his approval to feel powerful. 1 year later, we held a block party to celebrate Fetch and Feather's anniversary. Food trucks, a mobile groomer, games for kids, live music. I stood in front of our mural, surrounded by dogs in silly costumes, customers laughing, staff beaming, and thought, this is mine. Not borrowed, not given, not lucky. Built. Someone tapped my shoulder. I turned, expecting a customer. It was Sarah, the journalist who'd written the article. Still thriving, she asked, smiling. More than ever. She paused, then nodded toward the vacant bark and whiskers space next door. They never found a new tenant, huh? Nope, I said, looking at the dusty windows. Some spaces just come with bad energy. She laughed. Well, I think you turned yours into something pretty special. And as the sun set over our little corner of town, the sidewalk packed with people and pets and possibility, I believed her. This wasn't just revenge. It was rebirth. And I had never felt more free.